Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
There are moments in a fanbase's life where the noise stops being background chatter and starts sounding like something deeper, heavier, almost philosophical. This is one of those moments. Because when Bo Bichette stepped up in a New York Mets jersey for his introductory press conference, it didn't just feel like a player changing teams. It felt like a chapter closing. A long one. And suddenly, everyone wanted to know why. Not in a casual, shrug-your-shoulders way, but in a searching, restless way, as if the answer might reveal something uncomfortable about the Toronto Blue Jays themselves. And that's exactly what we're talking about today, right here on the Blue Jays Report. When news first broke that Bo Bichette was heading to New York, the immediate reaction wasn't rage. It wasn't even shock. It was confusion. A quiet, nagging confusion that lingered far longer than it should have. This was a homegrown star. A face of the franchise. A player many assumed would be a Blue Jay for life, or at the very least, far deeper into his prime. And yet, as free agency unfolded, there was no dramatic bidding war, no desperate final push, no public sense of urgency from the front office. It almost felt calm. Too calm. Before we dive any deeper, take a moment to like this video, share it with a fellow Jays fan who's still trying to process all of this, and subscribe to the Blue Jays Report if you haven't already. These conversations matter, and the community around them matters even more. One thing needs to be made crystal clear early on. Bo Bichette did not leave because he hated Toronto. Quite the opposite, in fact. The farewell message he released, the tone he struck, the way he spoke about the fans and the city, it all felt genuine. This wasn't a scorched earth exit. This wasn't bitterness aimed at the people in the seats. He grew up here, in a baseball sense. We watched him arrive, struggle, shine, and mature. That bond doesn't disappear overnight. Which is why the conversation has shifted away from the city and squarely towards the organization. Because if it wasn't the fans, and it wasn't Toronto itself, then what was it? That's where things start to get murky, and frankly, a little uncomfortable. Over the past few days, several articles and podcasts have poured petrol on a fire that was already smoldering. Most notably, comments from Whit Merrifield on the Six Hitting Stretch podcast raised eyebrows across the fanbase. Merrifield, who was in that clubhouse, didn't sound surprised at all by Bichette's departure. And that alone speaks volumes. He didn't claim there was a dramatic falling out. He didn't suggest doors were slammed or bridges burned. But he did strongly imply that the relationship between Bo Bichette and the Blue Jays management had frayed over time. That it simply reached a point where staying together no longer made sense for either side. Sometimes, that's worse than a big argument, because it suggests something slow, quiet, and unresolved. Now, let's be honest. None of us were in those meetings. None of us heard those conversations behind closed doors. So anything beyond that is speculation. But baseball fans are very good at reading between the lines, and when you look back at the last few seasons, there were signs that something wasn't quite right. The years 2023 and 2024 stand out like warning lights on a dashboard. 2023, in particular, was strange. That season felt tense, brittle, as if the entire organization was operating on a short fuse. Whit Merrifield himself has spoken openly about his frustration with front office interference, most notably during the infamous early pull of Jose Berrios in a playoff game. That decision didn't just spark outrage among fans. It reportedly unsettled players too. Then came 2024, a season that felt wrong almost from the first pitch. A 74-win team that never found its rhythm. A roster that wasn't meaningfully reinforced. And Bo Bichette, the heartbeat of the lineup, looked out of sync. When he was on the field, the performance wasn't there. When he was off it, the questions multiplied. Every camera shot of him on the bench seemed to tell a story of frustration. Not explosive anger, but quiet dissatisfaction. The kind that eats away at you over time. We all remember the public-facing messages. Bo saying he wanted to be here. Saying he loved Toronto. And I believe he meant it. But loving a place doesn't always mean you can keep working there. Anyone who's ever had a job they once adored will understand that. This is where the discourse really splits. Because some voices, particularly from certain corners of the media, have placed the blame firmly and aggressively on the front office. One Toronto Star column in particular framed the situation as an outright failure of leadership, suggesting deep resentment, bitterness, and even jealousy within the organization. It was fiery, opinionated, and for some fans, cathartic. But here's where I pause. Not because management is beyond criticism, but because real life is rarely that simple. Relationships break down for reasons that don't fit neatly into headlines. Miscommunication, clashing philosophies, control, trust, ego, fatigue. Any one of those, or all of them together, can slowly poison a working environment. Could the Blue Jays have offered Bo Bichette more money? Absolutely. There is no serious argument otherwise. Rogers has the resources. We've seen the spending. A 3-year, $126 million deal is significant, but not impossible. The more interesting question is whether they wanted to. And that, to me, is where the truth likely lives. Because sometimes, it's not about the money. Sometimes, it's about deciding that continuing a partnership will cause more harm than good. That doesn't mean Bo Bichette isn't talented enough. He is. That doesn't mean management didn't make mistakes. They did. It simply means that at some point, both sides may have quietly accepted that the relationship had run its course. And as fans, that's a difficult thing to swallow. We like heroes and villains. We like clean narratives. But baseball, like life, is messy. Am I upset that Bo Bichette is gone? Of course I am. I'll miss the swing. I'll miss the intensity. I'll miss the feeling that, on any given night, he could take over a game. Seeing him in a Mets uniform will sting for a long time. But am I furious at the front office? No. Disappointed at times? Yes. Curious? Certainly. But not furious. This same management group has built a World Series winning roster. They've made aggressive moves. They've also learned some hard lessons. And this might be one of them. If there's one takeaway they must carry forward, it's this. When you identify a cornerstone player early, you have to be proactive. You have to communicate clearly. You have to align philosophically. Because letting situations drift, hoping they resolve themselves, is how you end up here. The irony is that this lesson may already have been learned. The Vladimir Guerrero Jr. situation was handled differently. More directly. More decisively. That contrast alone suggests internal reflection has already taken place. So where does that leave us now? It leaves us with a Blue Jays team entering a new phase. A roster reshaped. Expectations recalibrated. A future still full of promise, even without one of its most recognizable faces. The only people who truly know what went wrong are Bo Bichette, Ross Atkins, and Mark Shapiro. That truth will likely never be fully public. And maybe that's okay. What matters now is what comes next. How this organization handles the next wave of stars. How it balances control with trust. How it avoids repeating the same mistakes. And for us, as fans, all we can really do is watch. Watch how the season unfolds. Watch how the clubhouse responds. Watch how the story continues to be written. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Are you angry about the Bo Bichette situation? Do you blame management? Or do you see this as a natural, if painful, part of professional sport? I genuinely want to hear where you stand. If you enjoyed this discussion, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Blue Jays Report. Thank you for being part of the conversation. And as always, go Jays.